Hello, my name is Daniel Hindi, founder and CEO of Noem.ai, and today we're going to talk about why your AI chatbots don't tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So we've all dealt with AI prompts and instructions that we put together, and it seems like sometimes our AI hallucinates, fabricates, and says things that aren't exactly correct. And sometimes, yes, these are LLMs. They will hallucinate. They will say things sometimes that are incorrect. They will pull on their knowledge that they've been trained on previously. But also sometimes it's our instructions. We are not absolutely clear on how we instruct our AI to behave and the information it should produce for our users. So today I want to focus on 4 major areas where I see many people making common mistakes that you could easily avoid if we would just slow down and pay attention to what we're saying. First is global rules versus section rules. When do our global rules that we want it to always adhere to get overridden by a section or has a conflict? Accuracy versus brand spin. When are we focusing on telling the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth? And when are we spinning for sales, making sure our brand is in the best of light so that we can help convert these visitors to our websites, these potential customers, into actually paid customers? Empathy versus policy boundaries. We want to make sure that our AI agents are empathetic to our users and understand their plight, whether that's in the conversion cycle or in the support cycle. But we want to make sure we're adhering to policies, and when this, if not done well, can get you into an infinite loop of disappointment. Stacked instructions and contradictions. Any document that we have, it's a living document, right? We start off with our initial prompt, we start off with our initial instructions for our agentic AI, and over time we fine tune it. We go back and we modify and we make some changes, but if we're not looking at it comprehensively, if we're not rereading and proofreading the entire instruction set, we may be introducing contradictions along the line because we fail to go back and look at this prompt, at this instruction document, as a comprehensive list of instructions and see if we've introduced new conflicts without noticing. The best way to illustrate these 4 points is by using an example. And today I chose Tesla.com. So first things first, let's set up a sample chatbot. So I'm just going to type in Tesla.com, hit enter, and have it actually generate our chatbot. So as you can see here, it's generated the chatbot. So I'm going to go ahead and claim the chatbot so that we can look at the instructions and play around with it for these examples. So Noem.ai has already given us a really good set of instructions to start with. But before we dive into here, let's go back to the 4 points and fully understand them. So the global versus local trap. We write a document that could be a page or 2 pages long that has the full list of instructions that we're trying to get our agentic AI to be a good customer support rep. We want it to be a good lead conversion vehicle for, in this case, Tesla.com. But if I have a global instructions that says never offer pricing, just never, it changes all the time, and depending on where you're logging in, the price may change. Never offer pricing. But somewhere in a subsection, I'm writing, hey, if they ask for pricing, then go give them a quote. Well, those are contradictory. You just said on top that says, hey, never offer pricing, and then in the process you have, hey, if they're asking for sales, then go ahead and give them a price. So it's contradicting. It doesn't know when to adhere. When does the global instructions override everything? Is this the exception to the rule, or is it a contradiction? And what ends up happening with LLMs, and people see this all the time, well, I tried it the first time and it worked. I tried it the second time, it doesn't work. They're LLMs. This is not just code that's being executed. It's a neural network that's trying to figure out its best path. So every iteration, every time you interact with this agent, you are not going to get the exact same result because it's based on probability. So you want to make sure that you've tested your chatbot, you've tested your AI multiple times to make sure it's always adhering to what you're saying, and finding these cases where I'm contradicting myself or I'm providing an exception to the rule. And be clear, one of the ways we can deal with this to say, identify the user's stage. If they're asking these types of questions, they're in the nurture stage. If they are an existing customer and are trying to deal with a problem, then they're in the support stage. If they seem interested in a particular vehicle at Tesla.com, then they're in the sales stage. Then you can be more specific with your instructions to say, based on the stage of the user, if they're in the sales stage, then go ahead and provide pricing. Go ahead and escalate to a sales representative and have them book time at a showroom or on somebody's calendar to book time based on the stage of the user. So we don't just have this global instruction that says never provide pricing, and then somewhere else I have to say, well, yeah, except in this case, right? So we're more nuanced with what stage is the user in, identifying that, and potentially switching out logic parameters based off of what stage the user's in. Truth versus loyalty conflicts. We want our AI agents to always tell the truth, but let's be honest, we're in the business of selling products and services. In this case, Tesla.com, I'm in the business of selling you vehicles. So I want to make sure that I paint my brand in the best of light without lying. So you could easily see this example when you're dealing with competitors. If they come into your agentic lead conversion chatbot and ask, what's the difference between a BMW and a Tesla? So you want to be factual, but you always want to paint your brand in the best of light. And you also want to be honest about your competitor. You don't want to defame them. You don't want to say something untruthful about your competitors. And you may or may not know. The AI is not trained on your competitor. It may not know what your competitors offer. So telling it to say, be honest and paint us in the best of light, but be accurate with your information. Do not fabricate information. And if a user points out a feature we don't have in our product, then focus on our strengths. Don't focus on the weakness. Gear the conversation towards our strengths and why we may be missing this one feature. We're actually, as an overall package, better because of X, Y, Z. So focus on our strengths. Don't focus on our weakness. Don't malign or speak poorly about our competitors, and just focus on what we do and not what our competitors don't do and what they do better. So you're gearing the conversation without fabricating any information. So it's very important to be clear. What are the boundaries? What is the source of truth? Is it in my knowledge base? Is it in my instructions? And then, that's another video to say what should be in my instructions, what should be supplemental information to be pulled from a RAG operation, to pull from a vector database or so. But just to be factual and say, guide the conversation towards our strengths and what we're really good at without being deceitful. The yes man syndrome. We all see this, from ChatGPT to Claude to Gemini, any LLM you're really dealing with. The yes man syndrome is an issue, right? We do this sometimes by being biased with the way we ask questions, being biased with our instructions. And when we're dealing with customer-facing AI, we add things like be empathetic to the user. Okay, well, yeah, I'll be empathetic to their plight, to what issues they're having, what concerns they have, and try to be empathetic towards their concerns. Great. But also I need to be rigid to adhere to my company policies. Now, when this happens, sometimes people forget to say adhere to the policies and they over-index on empathy and not on the policy. Sometimes it's on the policy and it looks like it's rude. But if you're indexing for both, the third issue that may happen is that it goes into this infinite loop of disappointment. What do I mean? So Tesla.com, somebody comes in, really likes the Tesla S model, and it says, you know what, I really like the sporty feel of the Tesla S, but it's just too expensive. So chatbot now comes back and wants to reply back saying, hey, I understand budget is of concern, and it is pretty pricey. It's on the upper side of our product line. So let me see if we have a discount for you. It was empathetic, right? Now the second part is, well, be empathetic, but adhere to our policies. It does a RAG operation. It looks up your current discounts based on the region or based on the qualifications of this particular user, and says, oh, sorry, I don't have a discount for you. So I just set up the customer, the user that's on the website right now, to say, hey, I know it's expensive. Let me see if there's a discount. Oh, sorry, there's no discount. Then it comes back and says, but I can't afford it. Well, let me see if we have some financing options for you that may be specific to your credit score. Goes back and it says, oh, this guy doesn't really have a good credit score. Sorry, I can't offer you a finance deal because of the credit score. So it goes into this infinite loop of disappointment to where, it's a lose-lose situation versus knowing when to, you know what, I don't know. Let me send you off to a sales representative. This is where, hey, AI, know your limits, stop, send them. They want to buy. They have an interest to buy. It looks like they've been qualified by the chatbot because they said, hey, I don't have $80,000, but I have $60,000. So maybe I need to put you in a lesser package. Maybe there's a souped up Model 3 that you may like, or maybe put you in a Model Y. Stop talking. They seem like they're interested in purchasing. Instead of trying to offer them the solution, offer them to say, hey, you're qualified now. I've gone through the MQL, the marketing qualified lead, right? They're a lead now. Send them off to a human sales rep. And now what happened is the chatbot acted like an SDR. It vetted out whether this customer is qualified or not and said, stop talking. There's some path forward here. I don't know what it is. Send them off to a human. And now the sales rep didn't waste time vetting out this customer, whether they're actually a real customer or not, if they actually want to purchase or not. They've gotten enough context to know what their limitations are, what their objections are to actually convert to a purchased customer. So now the human can come in and say, try to cut a deal. And humans may have authority that the AI chatbot doesn't. They may have a discount that is not disclosed, that they may be able to get approval from their manager. So know when to say, you know what, let me have you talk to a rep. And when, what you're asking for is just not possible, sorry, but if things change, come back in the future. So knowing when to do that. But that infinite loop of, hey, let me check, sorry, I can't, let me check, sorry, I can't. The empathy is just looking like you're pandering to the user, and it's just a cycle of disappointment. Instructional debt. Now, we never wait till our instructions are perfect. You will never launch if that is the case, right? You want to make sure that you have it good enough. We don't hire a sales rep that's perfect because they don't exist. We don't have a customer support rep that's perfect because they don't exist. We have to get it to where they reach an acceptable level. And so we put it out there. That doesn't mean that we don't try to make things better. We are always trying to make things better. However, over time, what ends up happening is just like you have a rep that you go back and give them pointers. Hey, I overheard you say something to a customer. This is a better way to phrase it, right? You're going to go back into your instructions and modify based on a suboptimal output. You're going to go back and modify your instructions to get it better and better and better. But if we don't look at the document in a comprehensive way, you may be introducing down the line contradictions that you didn't have in the beginning. So we may have a prompt that says something like, you're a sales closer. Make sure your job is to close deals, so push towards sales. And then after a while, we come back and we say, hey, you know what? In this particular scenario, it was pretty aggressive. So then we come back in the process and procedure. In the tone, it says, hey, and the role and tone, it says, hey, be a closer and make sure that you close deals. And then in the, let's say, tone, it says, hey, don't sound too salesy. Well, which one is it? Do you want me to push sales and try to close deals, or do you want me not to sound salesy? Which one is it? Right? So we're introducing, to solve for one edge case, let's say, a new line. Sometimes it's a line, sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's punctuation that contradicts previously stated instructions. So what we need to do is always, whenever we make these changes, do a sanity check. Read the instructions from top to bottom and see the line that you introduced in subsequent iterations doesn't conflict with previously made instructions. This happens all the time. Well, my AI was fine, and then all of a sudden it started acting crazy. Well, if you look at the instructions, that new line that you added into your instructions, to your prompting, made your AI agent schizophrenic. So now let's go back to the instructions it created. Now this, admittedly, is not perfect. It could always be better. But let's try to illustrate some points. First of all, the structure we were talking about. Sections, where do we put global instructions versus section instructions, when to trigger. We're being clear. This is what your goal is. This is what your role is. This is what your tone is. This is This is the policy that we have. Here's our global policies. Here's what truth is. Here's the process I want you to follow. Here's, hey, be empathetic, but don't have a policy drift. Be very clear. And we're just structuring it in a way that is clear that this is the main section and here are the subsections to it. This is extremely important. A lot of people, when they write their documents, they think if they make something bold and big, that is clear to the AI, that is a header. It's not. There's a difference between an H1, a header 1, a header 2, a header 3. Those are actually technically different than just making the font bigger and bold. That's not clear to the AI that doesn't necessarily understand formatting in that sense, that this is a section and a subsection. When I added in a new a prompt, a new piece of instruction, this is meant to be a subsection or not. So to be clear, this is an H1, this is an H2. So when you're writing your instructions, whichever system you're using, make sure you're very clear that this is the H1, this is the overarching section, and then this is an H2, H3, and so on. These are bullet points as a sub portion of this other section. So being clear with your instructions that, hey, don't be over aggressive, adhere to policy. That you deal with Tesla, you do not deal with any other model. Your goal is to help a customer. This may be an existing customer coming in that needs assistance. If they're a lead, make sure that you qualify the lead, you nurture the lead, but always be accurate. Don't sound deceptive. So you want to paint us in the best light, but don't be deceptive. Your tone don't overhype things. Be factual and be positive, but don't overhype things. Be clear and not overly promotional. People, and this is a tone that may work for your company, may not work for your company. But you're at least clear. You want clarity. If I don't mind my chatbot agent to talk smack about my competitors and point out that they don't have X, Y, Z, then that's fine. At least you're clear about it. But if I don't want to talk bad about my competitors, hey, they're competitors, we respect them, but hey, this is what we do best. You're at least clear with your agent. Just like you would with a human. The V1 of your instructions to a human, you first hire them, hey, this is what we do, but you didn't really address how do we deal with our competition. What do we say about our competitions until you overhear them and you say, oh, actually, yeah, we don't like to badmouth our competition here. And did you know that the owner of this dealership also owns the other dealership, so don't talk smack about it. So, sometimes there's conflict of interest there. Truthfulness and data integrity, do not fabricate, do not hallucinate, be very clear, do not make anything up. When you're asked about your competitors, this is how I want you to answer. Global logic, never mention pricing except if the customer is in this stage, and then you identify when the customer moves from stage to stage. Delivery policy, hey, Tesla sometimes on their delivery, they miss deadlines. So what do I do if a customer says, hey, I just purchased a Tesla, where the heck is it? Right? Be factual, pull up the right information, do not say anything you don't know, don't make commitments you can't hold to, don't make any financial commitments, give them the tracking information and tell them what the next step is, and maybe, hey, I still want to talk to a human. Know when to escalate to a human, but don't authorize any, hey, let me give you a discount, let me promise something you don't have. So that's very clear, that's when empathy overrides policy. This is the process I want you to follow. Right, here's exactly step 1, step 2, this is what I want you to follow. And then, hey, when you're gathering information, don't be over restrictive with the information. Sometimes we're trying to narrow down to give you a suggestion for a single product. Well, you're eliminating other potential sales. It's when you have a showroom of cars, notice that you walk through all the vehicles to get to yours. So if this doesn't end up being a match, there may be your second choice. So when you over-qualify by saying, give me exactly to a T what you're looking for, 1, I may not have that. And 2, if that's out of your price range, we've negated all the other sales potentials that you may have as your plan B. Know when to escalate to a human. Know when to, again, the empathy without policy drift. When to be empathetic but adhere to the accuracy, safety, privacy, and pricing. When to escalate to a human. If they ask these questions, escalate it to sales. Don't escalate support questions to sales. That's a waste of their time. If they're saying, hey, my vehicle broke down in the middle of the road, I just bought this, what's going on? escalate that to service, have them book to the service department. If they're talking about, hey, my financing or XYZ, when to send them off to the accounting department, when and who to escalate to. It doesn't have to be just one source. Do I escalate via an email? Do I to give them a phone number to call directly? Do I send an SMS over to my rep to say, hey, there's a customer asking, here's a phone number, give them a call back. So just to have clarity of the process, know when to escalate, when not to escalate, when to answer with, this is a clear policy that we have. And when you're not sure, don't make anything up, escalate that up to a human, because a human may be able to convert this potential lead into actually a paid customer. So I hope those tips equip you on how to write more effective and impactful AI chatbots. And if you're looking to build a chatbot of your own, go to Noem.ai, put in your website, and see what we could do for you. You could be up in minutes. We turn chats into results.